Hello, team. Welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan MS Pearce. Ukraine War breaking news update for the 6th of August 2024. I'm on holiday at the moment. I was melting outside, even in the shade, absolutely melting. So after a couple of cool beers, I'm just getting a little bit of air conditioning cool here. So there's quite a lot to talk about today, and I know I'm on holiday. I know loads of you are saying you need to relax more. What are you doing? This is my relaxing, I guess, something like that. Anyway, we're going to go to the breaking news is that there's been this incursion across the border in Kursk, which is north of Kyiv, and it is, away from, to the west of the Russian attack down south from Belgorod into Kharkiv Oblast. Quite what's going on here, I don't know. I don't know whether this is opportunism, then it created a bit more success, and then let's pile some more in, or whether they already had that stuff there, which is probably more likely, and this was a calculated attack across the border to distract maybe the Russians, to do exactly to the Russians what the Russians were trying to do to the Ukrainians, and succeeded to some degree in the distraction side of things, although I've argued that they would have had better success in the whole ratio, trying to distract Ukrainian troops away from the front line by putting 50,000 troops up in Kharkiv would have been, so that you can have a ratio advantage on the front line, would have been better achieved by putting those 50,000 troops on the front line in the east would have been. And, I think the Kharkiv offensive has completely failed, but they have distracted some troops away from the front line. Now, the Ukrainians doing this back to the Russians here, if they're using, I don't know whether this is the Russian Volunteer Corps, the Freedom of Russia Legion, or genuine other troops. They are using things like Strikers and Bradleys and Western provided weapons to strike across the border into Russia, which is interesting in itself. And not for the first time, they have done that before. And I thought they got into a bit of trouble when they did this first of all. They've had several incursions across the border. The very first one, where it was known that they were using some like Polish provided weapons and American weapons, I think there's a little pushback here. Well, this is pretty overt, so maybe there's permission to do so. And anyway, Russian sources are now showing increasing alarm at the situation in Kursk Oblast. The presence of Bradley and Striker IFVs is an indication of the significant deployment of elite Ukrainian brigades to the area, quite possibly. Lots of talk about this at the moment. Michael Weiss chipping in to say, looks like a proper knackering of Russian positions inside Russia today, possibly the most successful cross-border raid to date. A number of Russian POWs have been captured as well. And in fact, here we go. We see a whole unit of Russians surrendered and were captured in the Kursk region of Russia. To surrender in Russia to Ukrainians rather than just go back the other way is really interesting. Don't know quite what to make of that. Gick says, so he's one of Andrew Perpetua's team, said 2 Russian trucks and tanks on their trailers were obliterated in Shuzhka in Kursk, reportedly as they rushed to the border to help. So being put on, as you will know, I'm sure that you don't drive tanks and IFVs to the front line. You put them on a trailer and you drive them close enough to then put them on their tracks, and they'll then go to the front line for the last few kilometers or whatever. Well, here these vehicles were taken out on the way there, which is interesting. So it might suggest that the Ukrainians are ready and waiting with whatever weaponry it is that took these things out. As I say, surrendering units there, and things are heating up in Russia's Kursk region, where Ukrainian armed forces have crossed the border. There's a plane flying over there. I don't know which side this video is coming from, probably a Russian side, but you've got lots of burning up ahead. You've got burning vehicles. There's all sorts going on. So this is going to be one to keep an eye on. That looks like an oil truck there, but there's lots of info. Well, I say lots of information, lots of rumors coming, and lots of people talking about this attack into Kursk. It could be significant. It might draw away some resources from the Russians. We'll have to wait and see. I'm just going to get while I've got your attention. There were some additions to what I produced in my hits and losses video earlier that required a little bit more information. Now, we're going to start with Kursk. I said there were strikes on Kursk. There were 26 drones, was it? The Russians claimed they shot down, but lots of explosions in Kursk from drone attacks overnight. That I assume is connected to the cross-border attacks, right? As a result of the attack on military unit 75079 near Kursk, the main building was partially destroyed. So attacking military units housed there, which means that, if you can attack them overnight with drones and take out those units, then, or at least, cause them to panic, and emergency services and ambulances and casualties there, and then you attack, there's going to be disarray. So that looks to be part of the larger attack into Kursk. Now, to go back to talks of the Russian Iskander ballistic strike, in Kharkiv, it injured 8, including an infant, hit a hospital, a university building, a dormitory, and a residential buildings in Kharkiv. So quite a lot of damage done by, I don't know if that's just one missile there slamming into Kharkiv. And I talked about how it could be S-300s being used again in their ground attack mode. Just a few more bits and pieces. So far in an area of Old Simferopol Airport in Crimea, which is now used as a helicopter location. So it could be that some helicopters have been taken out in Crimea from strikes either overnight or early in the morning. Don't know any more detail about that, but good news for the Ukrainians. And an explosion at the Transneft oil refinery in Uzinsk in the Communist Republic in Russia. And a fire there is now raging. And actually that seems to be fairly... there's another... I had another video of that, but it's not here. I've accidentally deleted that. But yeah, as you can see in the back of this one, a fairly sizable fire at another oil refinery. Now, whether that's hit by drones, or there was one that was recently on fire that was too far away for drones. I think it's 2,000 plus kilometers, and one would assume, but hey, you never know at the moment, that was some kind of sabotage rather than a direct strike. Anyway, lots going on at the moment, but particularly keep an eye out for what is going on in Kursk. This is a developing piece of news here that could indicate a successful incursion. I presume it's going to be more of a kind of raid incursion rather than trying to take land, although it could be that. I mean, they did hang around in the last attack that was done by the Ukrainians north of the border. They stayed for much longer, didn't they, than just a raid. But again, there's surely no long-term idea of taking land and claiming it as Ukrainian, as the Russians have done in the occupied areas of Ukraine. I don't think that's going to be the long-term goal, but maybe to keep hold of that land for as long as possible, to draw away as many troops and resources from the Russians as possible, is going to be something they're planning, I would assume. But anyway, that's enough for my little breaking news update. I've got one on Tim Walz being selected, as the vice president for Kamala Harris's campaign. I'll do a separate US election breaking news update as well. Anyway, take care, guys. Speak soon.